Welcome to On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by Review Maxer.
Hello and welcome to On Top of PR. I'm your host, Jason Mudd with Advocacy Public Relations. And this episode is 20 reasons why your company's social media sucks and how to fix it. Welcome to this episode. I'm excited to do this episode. We don't talk as much as I'd like to about social media on Top of PR, but we are actively doing more and more social media conversations. And if your social media isn't getting you the results you want, this episode is definitely going to be for you. We're going to explain some common frustrations companies and organizations are experiencing when they don't see the type of ROI that they're looking for from or engagement they're looking from their social media. We're also going to put these into categories of strategy, content, engagement, and implementation. So let's jump right into this episode. And please, if you have any questions, collect them as the episode goes, and feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk about these with you and guide you through them, because certainly nobody's perfect. No social media presence or brand. Our brand is going to be perfect on all of their channels and platforms. But that's what we're going to talk about a little bit during this episode today. So first, let's start with strategy and investment issues. There are 5 mistakes we've identified when it comes to making strategy and investment in social media. Number 1 is you're not investing in the right sources. So a lot of times, and we've talked about this before in another episode, we'll put links to it in the episode notes. But we were talking to a guy named Jacob, and he does social media, and he's a one-man social media department. And so we'll share that episode with you with Jacob Shipley. However, most of the time we're finding that most social media departments are a department of 1, maybe a department of 2. But here's the thing, you are not investing in the right resources because you're expecting oftentimes one person to handle everything from writing content, optimizing content, manage communities and channels and platforms, and also to produce video, graphics, and monitor social media. And that's just a lot to ask one person to do. I was talking the other day with a colleague, and it's really as if social media has become a its own little marketing type company or department because of all the resources that you really have to put into it that can make things really difficult for people to be able to do that. So anyway, I just think it's important that we think about how a one-person social media team is fairly unreasonable, extremely unreasonable, because of the variety of talents. And again, it's become such a powerful tool that you almost need to treat it like it's definitely its own department, and it needs all the elements that a marketing department would need: a designer, a writer, a strategist, a coordinator, and all of those things. Now, you might be able to split those tasks within the marketing department, but just having one single person try to own and control and do everything that social media requires, it's just too much to ask. And we have a nice episode where we really focus on that with Jacob Shipley, and I'll be sure to share that with you in the episode notes. The second item under strategy and investment is you're not optimizing for each platform. So what's happening is, and we all know this happens, and I'm sure we do it at our own agency for ourselves, but when you're working with a brand, if social media is important, you don't want to just copy and paste the same content and put it on LinkedIn, put it on Instagram, put it on Twitter, put it on TikTok. That's because each platform is unique and has typically a different type of content that's native to that platform. And so, the biggest difference would be that, X, especially in their original format, like X was only 140 characters, leaving you with up to 20 characters for a username, so that actually tweets were the same size of a text message, or 160 characters. And then at some point they decide, we're going to make these tweets longer. I disagree with that decision, just like I disagree with TikTok making their videos, enabling their videos to be longer. But basically, Instagram used to be about lifestyle photography before they started really focusing on videos. And now it's just all videos all the time for the most part. And X used to be about little snippets. And then, TikTok came around and really disrupted everything and kind of, made everybody, especially Facebook and Instagram, try to compete with them. So what you need to really figure out is who is your brand going to be on each platform, but more importantly, what is kind of the native or acceptable or typical content or the best content for that platform? Obviously, you wouldn't post still images on YouTube and you wouldn't post still images on TikTok. That might work somewhere else like Facebook or LinkedIn. The third item is you're chasing trends without a strategy. So that just means that you're jumping on every viral trend, and it can make your brand look desperate and inauthentic versus looking for the trends that make sense and aligning them with your brand, your values, your positioning, and ultimately your target audience or your true buyer or your actual customer or whoever you're trying to influence. The the next item we have here is you're measuring success by wrong metrics. So often I hear people talk about vanity metrics when it comes to social media and other communications measurements. They might be thinking about their follower count, their likes, their comments, and their shares. But really, all of that can mean nothing without the right level of engagement and conversions, especially when those come from people that are your target audience or maybe buyers or influencers or supporters of your organization. So just measuring follower count, the number of likes, comments, and shares is a pretty superficial and pretty much a vanity metrics when you should be looking at click-through rates and conversion rates. And are you growing steadily as opposed to just are you gaining some followers? And so, the desperation that often comes with that is people trying to be humorous or entertaining for the sake of being entertaining, kind of like Super Bowl commercials, right? They can be entertaining and people can talk about them because they're entertaining, but they don't necessarily remember the brand that sponsored it. The fifth item I want to talk about is your kind of similar or related is you're ignoring data and analytics. So if you're not tracking performance, you're making content decisions in the dark. And the good thing about digital marketing, digital content is that you often have the resources you need right at your fingertips to be able to have data, have insights, and use that information to make informed decisions. And then have a stronger strategy. And then you're able to test and tweak and see how people respond to your content and pivot and improve from there.
You're listening to On Top of PR with your host, Jason Mudd. Jason is a trusted advisor to some of America's most admired and fastest growing brands. He is the managing partner at Advocacy Public Relations, a PR agency that guides news, social, and web strategies for national companies. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to On Top of PR. I'm your host, Jason Mudd with Advocacy Public Relations. I didn't mention this earlier, but today's episode is a solo cast, and that means that it's just me and you. There's not a guest. We are talking about the best practices of public relations in an attempt to help you stay on top of PR. And today we're talking about 20 reasons why your company's social media sucks and how to fix it. We're in the third portion or the third topic or category of this episode. We've got about 12 more mistakes to cover, but this category is engagement and audience issues, and we have 5 mistakes to talk about here. So when it comes to engagement and audience, we find that a lot of companies and social media managers are ignoring engagement and conversions. And so if you're not responding to comments and messages, your audience will move on to your competition, or they just won't buy or support your cause. I think it's really important that we emphasize not that there's a role of community management that falls under social media. And again, I've already stated that social media managers can't do everything. You need to divide and conquer all the assignments and responsibilities under the umbrella of excellence in social media management. The second mistake under engagement and well, just real quick, going back to the other one, if someone's taking the time to comment or DM you, that's probably an important opportunity for you to be monitoring and managing appropriately. The second mistake we see under engagement and audience issues is you're underestimating the power of employee advocacy. Your employees can be your best brand ambassadors, but you have to manage this appropriately, because if social media is not part of their responsibility, you really can't require them to participate in social media on behalf of the company. You can ask them to, you can even offer to compensate them, but you can't expect them to do it without some sort of consideration. And so you need to think about this also for the consideration for your social media managers and the expectation that they're going to be on call 24/7, 365 to respond to comments, to respond to messages, to respond to trends, and always be monitoring their social media. You really need to split that up into shifts. So again, a team environment is the best way to arrange that. I would consult with HR and your legal department before you start asking your employees to be advocates and to participate in social media videos, social media comments, and social media posts. Also, for what it's worth, and we have another episode we talk about this as well, we can link to in the episode notes, but disclosing and operating ethically on social media is uber important as well. So in other words, if one of your employees, or you're asking your employees to share a social media post or comment on a social media post, ethically, they should disclose in the very first sentence or at some point in that social media post or caption, in that post or that comment, they should disclose, hey, I work at this company and I'm really excited about the following announcement. Or I work at this company and I love working there. Or I love working at Acme Corp. I love working at Advocacy Public Relations. I'm excited about this new announcement they've made, or this new client they've signed, or this new contract we're involved in. But you can't just share a post or a comment without disclosing it. A perfect example of that, as a little bit of a sidebar, is that, in every community, there's these community groups, the city you live in, it might be called, a network. So if you live in Paducah, Kentucky, you might subscribe to Paducah, Kentucky Network, and on there, local citizens talk about things. And so, for example, if somebody says, hey, I need a plumber to come by and do X, Y, and Z at my house or my business, and the wife of a plumbing company's owner goes on and says, oh, well, Bob's Plumbing is the best in town, ! What that spouse did that is actually unethical and violates like the FTC and other regulations is she never said, my husband owns Bob's Plumbing and I highly recommend you work with them. So most people don't realize that, and that's part of what you have to educate your employees about. But I digress. All right, the third topic or mistake that we're seeing under engagement and audience issues is you're failing to incorporate user-generated content. Social media is all about user-generated content. It always has. People trust content from other users more than corporate post or corporate content or sponsored content. So if at all possible, look for opportunities to take genuine customer, genuine employee, genuine user-generated content and integrate them into your social media activities. That might be sharing posts where people are saying nice things about your product. They might just simply be sharing posts where people are using your product or enjoying your product. But definitely take advantage of ways to find user-generated content more so than corporate-generated content. The fifth mistake you're making for audience and engagement issues is you're forgetting that social media is supposed to be social. So loosen up, be human, have some fun, show some personality. If it's not in line with your brand, don't overdo it. Don't make it so it's not authentic. Don't make it so it's off brand. Try to find on brand ways to have a little fun, be social, and show some of your corporate and individual personality. And so that might be finding individuals within your organization to be on camera and to ham it up a little bit, but just make sure it lines up with your brand. And I would just test this and tweak it and see what the response is and feedback. I know we've got some clients at Axia, they will not play. I mean, they literally will not be playful. They don't want to do anything off brand. They're very uptight about how their social media presence works. So that just won't work for them. But if you have some creative licensing, take advantage of it, do some trials, ask for permission to try some new things, and see how not only does the audience respond, but how do the stakeholders in your organization, the leadership team, the management team, your supervisor, how do they feel about it? All right, the fifth mistake that we're seeing under this category is you're taking too long to respond. Social media moves fast. If your reply takes days, your audience has already moved on. A perfect example of this, and I hear it occasionally from either client side social media managers, or even occasionally with, for lack of a better word, kind of new teammates on our social media team. And so they might say, oh, well, I'm glad that this announcement happened right today, but we've already got our social media content mapped out for the rest of the month. We'll have to talk about it next month. Well, I'm recording this episode on February 13th, 2025. If we're done with our post scheduling for the month of February and we're not going to announce news that happened today or this week until next month, then it's no longer news. It's stale. It's no longer interesting. So, you've got to learn to pivot and improvise in the PR and communication business. And there's no tool or platform that or audience that expects this more than social media does. So if your reply takes days to your audience, they've probably moved on. So if they've DM'd or commented to you and you don't get back to them right away, they've probably bought somewhere else or decided not to buy at all. So you got to move fast. And again, that goes back to being more than a department of one when it comes to social media. It also goes back to having that team support and shifts and things like that, not expecting your people to be on call 24/7, 365 to respond to every comment and every DM you might get. Now, again, moving back to the calendar item, look, if you've got a post going live at 10 a.m. and you just found out at 8 a.m. that you've got to announce something big, well, guess what? That 10 a.m. scheduled post can be moved to another time. Our mandate to our team for social media is we want to map out a month's worth of content. 80% of the content we'll be producing about 2 weeks ahead of time for the following month. And then we're looking for opportunities proactively throughout the month for at least 20% of our clients and our own agency's content to be improvised, to be spontaneous, to jump on a trend, or to hear something within our organization, whether it's on a Zoom or other video call, or in the hallways, or in a meeting or whatever, and you hear something, you go, okay, yeah, let's put that on social media. So you leave room in your calendar and you leave room in your kind of your vision or your direction or your strategy to say, hey, we want at least 20% of our content to be more improvised, more real time, more engaging, more unexpected and not scheduled. And so you really have to find intention and a desire and a passion for saying, hey, there's another idea for a social media post. Let's insert it between these two, or let's go live with it right away, even though we might have something coming right before it or right after it. It's going to be okay, I promise. All right, the last bucket or category we have about the mistakes that you're making in social media is execution and operational issues. We have 5 mistakes in this category. The first one is you're inconsistent with posting. A sporadic posting schedule makes your brand forgettable. Now, I'm more interested in how frequently you're posting. So, for example, I noticed a particular company on LinkedIn, they haven't posted in almost a year. And that, to me, made me go through and kind of check them out a little bit more just to make sure, hey, they're still in business. They're still a reliable company to be doing business with. We still want to consider a relationship with these guys. But seeing that they hadn't posted in 10 months on LinkedIn gave me a little bit of pause and a little bit of concern. So, a sporadic posting schedule on a short-term basis might be okay, right? You don't have to post every morning at 9 a.m. and you shouldn't be, but I'd rather see you post every morning at 9 a.m. than not posting for 10 months. But I don't think 9 a.m. is the secret time. And you know what? Going back to a previous tip, you've got data and analytics to tell you when your audience is engaged on social media. I remember years ago, somebody said, hey, if you're sending out B2B emails, you might want to follow an example that B2C companies have found, which is sending out emails on Saturday mornings, early in the morning, actually have a higher read rate than emails that are sent weekdays or during business hours. And so we played around with that. And sure enough, our viewing rate of our emails we sent out went through the roof. So did our click-through rates when we decided to play around with sending them on a Saturday. And similarly, kind of do something contrarian, play around, see if you post it late at night or first thing in the morning or at lunchtime or whatever. So play around with your posting schedule. Just be consistently posting, not just sporadically posting. Second tip in this category is you're not repurposing content effectively. So you've got pieces of content like blog posts, podcasts, PR wins, turn those into social media posts. Turn them into little, pebbles of content that you can reuse over and over again in different formats. So every blog post your company publishes can be at least one social media post. Every blog post can become multiple social media posts, and so can other news and happening within your organization. So be almost like an investigative reporter or a journalist within your organization and be looking for news that you can share, uncover things under rocks, ask people questions. A real quick way to get content is to say, hey, whatever department contributes the most ideas and photos or content from the field for social media this month, whether we use them or not, gets a lunch on us or Taco Tuesday event or Pizza Friday, or, we're going to bring in a magician, or we're going to give you a spa day, whatever's within your budget and your capabilities. But I'm pretty sure no matter how poor your social media budget might be, you can probably afford to give a pizza party for the department that submitted the most ideas. Now, maybe you'd want to be careful and not get spammed with ideas, and you say the ideas we use or footage we use or whatever it might be. That's up to you. You'll have to figure that out. But certainly that's a great way to get content from the field. All right. Mistake number 3, you're not experimenting enough. Social media requires or evolves quickly. It requires you to test new ideas or you'll fall behind. So play around with social media takeovers, take some risks, take some challenges, obviously be considerate. Obviously don't do things in a vacuum, involve others, get feedback and insight to make sure you're not being offensive or you're not alienating any audiences. But take some risks, have some fun, do some experimenting, find and test new ideas, and challenge yourself and your team to come up with creative ways to leverage social media. One thing you can do is bring somebody in outside of the marketing department and just say, hey, what would be some cool things we could do for social media that would be interesting and entertaining to you? And then see how that goes. Okay, the fourth thing that we think is a mistake under execution or implementation and operational issues is you don't have a crisis plan in place. So, what happens if your company starts going viral on social media for the wrong reasons? A single misstep can spiral out of control. So have a crisis readiness response plan in place and ready to go for in the event there's ever a social media issue with your organization. That could be that somebody posted something on the corporate account that they weren't supposed to. Maybe they accidentally were logged into thought they were logged in their personal account. They were logged into the company account. Maybe you said something inappropriate and you're going viral for it. So, work with your crisis communication advisor or team, internally or externally, to say, hey, what can we do to leverage social media to help our company, A, when we're going through crisis, or B, if there's ever a social media crisis or misstep, how do we want to handle that? What messaging and graphics and materials can we have in place to make sure if something goes wrong, it's not, it's controlled as much as possible. The fifth and final mistake that we think you're making when it comes to implementation and operational issues is you're not auditing your social media regularly. If you're not reviewing what's working and what's not, you're probably wasting time and effort or your investment or resources. So audit your social media regularly. Figure out what's working, what's not. Look at what gets engagement and what doesn't. Figure out how you take it to the next level, and with the aspiration of helping and getting your social media to be 1% better every day. So these were a pretty strong list we put together here of the biggest mistakes we see companies make with their social media. We want to encourage you to audit your own social media compared to this list, and maybe even assign yourself a grade to each one. We'll put a list of all of these mistakes and tips on the episode notes, which you can find at ontopofpr.com. Pull up this episode and go to those episode notes. We'll put some resources in there for you. We also have an ebook on about social media that you can check out on our website. We'll put a link to that in our episode notes. In addition, we invite you to share your feedback on what are some of your biggest social media struggles, some of your top social media tips, and maybe some of your best social media wins. You can add them to the comment on our episode notes. And lastly, I would encourage you, if you feel like your brand, your company or organization needs help with social media, you can book a consultation with me or one of our other team members. And you can also check out our new social media packages that we have launched earlier this month. You can do that at axiapr.com/social. We've got 3 packages there that vary in size and scope and investment level. Hopefully there's one package there for every organization that's listening. We find there's a lot of turnover in social media, a lot of times because of the burnout that they face by trying to be a one-man or one-person show 24/7, 365. It sometimes is a lot easier and more affordable just to outsource it to a team of experts, whether that's our agency or somewhere else. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, take a moment, please share it with a friend or colleague you think would benefit from this listening or watching this episode. Because we work really hard here to help you stay on top of PR. And thank you for listening. This is Jason Mudd with Axia Public Relations signing off. Be well.
This has been On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by ReviewMaxer. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and check out past shows at ontopofpr.com.